Let's roll. Batman, The Brave and the Bold featured a wide range of characters for an animated series based on Batman, with the stylish noir design and crazy arcs that referenced everything from the supernatural to science fiction. This animated series remained pretty grounded. Even though the series was canceled in 2011, no one can deny its impact on the generation that watched it because it allowed some of the old comic book villains to debut in the animated format. Borrowing heavily from the Adam West Batman series for the character design, this series would be a unique take on the character and its world of colorful characters. While Batmite ended up being the Scrappy-Doo of the series, it did bring to life various characters from the comic books and some wholly original ones. Let's look at some of the major villains from the Batman, The Brave and the Bold series. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Hold the trolley. I don't want to fight. I want to be partner.
Joker. It's only fair that the first villain we discuss here is the Clown Prince of Gotham, the Joker. This animated series gives us a fresh take on the Joker, and the expressions might seem very inspired by the Jack Nicholson's take on the character from the 1989's The Batman. We do get to witness the origin story, which follows the sad fate of Jack Napier as he falls into a vat of acid after Batman stops his robbery attempt. Following his rise as a psychopath with a plan for himself, Joker collaborates with many of the other villains on his path to go against the Caped Crusader. Even though we are used to Mark Hamill's voice when it comes to the Joker's character, Jeff Bennett does a brilliant job with his take on the character, which resembles Al Capone and other criminals from America. The character design is picked straight from the 1950s version of the comic books that Dick Sprang drew. One of the stories sees the Joker dying, only to be revealed that he has survived and has been hiding for a long time. This Joker also comes with his usual weapons, like the laughing gas and the gun with the bang on it, and funnily enough, the pocket-sized bazooka. Unlike most other renditions of this character, Joker is inspired by the individual named Weeper, who eventually meets up with him as they unite to go against the Dark Knight. If you want a fun and different version of the Joker, something that hasn't probably landed on the screens for a long time, you should check out Joker's episodes from The Brave and the Bold. Even though we are used to the Joker being the ideal villain for Batman with his craziness, the series didn't manage to utilize the character that well. Hardcore fans might prefer to stick to the version we got in the original Batman animated series, as the character had a more terrifying appeal and Mark Hamill's more than perfect work. Owlman. No, this is not the Owlman from Alan Moore's masterpiece, The Watchmen, based in the DC universe. However, this character's aspects can be said to have been inspired by the Owlman that Alan Moore brought to life. Owlman in the Brave and the Bold series is Thomas Wayne Jr., Bruce's younger brother from an alternate universe. Yes, that does answer many questions, but at the same time, it also ends up raising quite a few. He has a similar origin story except for the fact that he lost his brother and his mother to a killing conducted by the corrupt cops of Gotham PD, and Thomas held his father responsible for this. The rest of the story is quite similar to what happened with Bruce, but after all the lessons, he used his talents for the forces of evil and became one of Gotham's most prominent criminal masterminds. Comedian Dietrich Bader voiced the character of the Dark Knight gone wrong, and he did a perfect job, considering the actor has also voiced Batman in the series. Yep, the creative team for the series wanted to make sure everything was on point. Owlman joins hands with Joker and several other villains on this list to fight against Batman and eventually forms the Injustice Syndicate. Funnily, after defeating Owlman, Batman, disguised as Owlman, infiltrated this organization of villains to catch them. Owlman also appears in the Justice League Crisis on Two Earths animated cinematic event. While he didn't get to be adequately explored, this series gave us an insight into the character that would be appropriately used in future interpretations. After all, it can be a lot to establish a Batman gone wrong persona in a series filled with various other characters. Catwoman. Batman's will or won't opponent or partner, Catwoman, is significant in this animated series. She perfectly fills the role of the badass persona in this world of criminals and heroes, and the Caped Crusader does not have a soft place for her sometimes. During one of her encounters with Batman and Green Arrow, Bat lets her go and later admits that he only wants to rehabilitate her. Cat leaves her number for him with a note telling him to call her. Even though she has a villain arc, at one point she joins the Birds of Prey next to Black Canary and Huntress, when Bruce goes into an amnestic run as a gangster. Nika Futterman does a brilliant job as the character, bringing the siren and the damsel in distress tone to make her fit perfectly into this noir world. She even sings in one of the episodes next to the other members of Birds of Prey as the other gangsters stare at them. Even though the character design was inspired by the Golden Age version of the character, she does end up switching to the Silver Age costume by the end of the series run.
Let's roll.
Harley Quinn. Now that we have discussed Batman's almost love affair, let's shift the focus to one of Batman's arch-nemesis girlfriends, Harley Quinn. Her arc in the series shows how toxic the relationship between Joker and Harley was, as she was fooled by him with lies and convinced into becoming the villain. Even though the present incarnations of this character have taken into consideration that she does have a sense of herself apart from the clown of Gotham, this series hardly manages to build on that aspect of the character, and she is shown to be in the complete and absolute love with Joker. The only time we see her perspective is when Joker shows his obsession with Batman, as she cannot understand why the clown particularly wants to put down the Dark Knight. The look and feel of the character are very similar to those of the noir gangster film girls, and she has some unique aspects compared to her past incarnations. Earlier takes on the character tend to have more color, but here we see her more focused on the colors black and white. Sometimes in the series, we witness how little Joker cares for her, but Harley is all in for Joker, as she even stands next to him after he is restored to normal from his defeat against Jokermite. Megan Strange brings her rendition of the persona to the character after being the third woman to voice her in the animated format. Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy makes an exciting addition to the roster of villains in his animated series, and she makes quite the mark in Gotham. We get to see her for the very first time in the episode where Batman brings up tracing Joe Chill, the person responsible for his parents' murder. Joe Chill was conducting an arms sale where Poison Ivy was bidding for the Sonic Disruptor, only for the Dark Knight to pop in. Later, when Batman manages to confront Joe Chill, Chill tries to seek help from the other villains and reveals that he is responsible for the origin of Batman. It only causes him more trouble as the villains, including Poison Ivy, attack him for giving Gotham the Caped Crusader. Later in one of the episodes, she intends to become the Queen of Crime as she launches a full-fledged attack on Gotham with a giant purple plant. As Batman arrives to stop her, she tries to convince him to become her king, but they are rejected. This response angers her as she tries to kill him, but he manages to escape. Her final appearance would be when she is among the various villains Joker gathers for his superhero celebrity roast of Batman. Poison Ivy hardly had the chance to escape, as each time she would get caught and put in Arkham Asylum. Two different actors took on the voice work for Ivy, Jennifer Hale and Vanessa Marshall. Talia AlGhul. The daughter of Batman's greatest enemy, Ra's al Ghul, Talia, proves to make her mark in this series, and Batman has a hard time with her. Even though her father trained her and always intended to become a great leader, she managed to go against his wishes if she planned to. This behavior proved that Talia didn't end up being the ideal heir that Ra's al might have wanted, and Talia further proved in favor of it by criticizing the worth of the power of the Lazarus Pit. Even though Ra's al might not favor it, she believes she is the rightful heir of his empire. When it comes to Batman and his allies, she plays with the heart of Robin, who makes various attempts at flirting with her while she rejects him. She even managed to grab hold of Batman's utility belt. Yes, the very utility belt that holds an answer to almost every sort of situation that the Caped Crusader might fall into. Even though Robin had clear feelings for her, it was Batman to whom her romance flared, and even confessed her love for him with a kiss. Unlike most other villains who have their powers, Talia is a highly skilled assassin and almost at par with Batman's combat skills, proving how deadly she is. Andrea Bowen did the voice for Talia for her limited appearance in the animated series. Equinox. Equinox, bearing the yin-yang symbol on his chest, was given his powers by the Lords of Order and Chaos to keep the balance between good and evil in check. While this is a pervasive power amongst superheroes, Equinox failed to bear this responsibility due to the pressure. The first time we witness this is when Equinox captures Grodd and the Question to kill them, but the Caped Crusader stops them. Later, he would take much more severe steps, destroying the entirety of New York, but Batman came to stop him. By the end of this episode, Batman gets defeated by Equinox, but the latter uses his powers to bring Batman back from the brink of death. Understandably, anyone would find Batman as their mortal enemy in such situations. Still, Equinox became his arch-nemesis due to an event where he was planning to reshape the universe according to his plans. He stole the powers of the Lords of Order and Chaos and decided to use the powers to start the universe anew with the balance he intended. Batman takes powers from Dr. Fate and various other heroes to battle him, and finally, he goes up against Equinox. However, this event proves one thing about Batman. He still gets defeated after acquiring all of these powers, but finally uses his wit to defeat Equinox. Even though Equinox is defeated, his hatred for Batman spawns the Batman Revenge Squad, a bunch of robots animated by a computer in the future that somehow acquired some of Equinox's consciousness. Yes, that's some level of hostility. These robots went around and killed Batman across the space-time continuum, but they were defeated by a robot Batman. Equinox proved to have a brilliant arc for a character that had just debuted in the animated series. It's as if some futuristic mummy-like scenario unfolded for Batman, and the pun is intended because Oded Fehr from the Mummy movies voiced this character. Creating such a complex character like Equinox was only proof of the writing potential of the people behind this series. However, in the episodes where he appeared, the narratives weren't strong enough to make him a successful villain in Batman. Some may argue that various other worlds have given such characters a lot more field to play around with. As you can imagine the idea of one of the Watchers going wrong and the amount of power they would have in their hands. Some fans of DC felt that Equinox was inspired by Libra's arc, as the two share similar responsibilities. However, the potential of this character is a clear indication that DC should consider bringing him back to the pages of comic books or some future projects. Clock King. It's not a list of Batman villains if we don't include characters associated with a particular motif, and Clock King is the very first one here. William Tachman was obsessed with clocks, and why wouldn't he be? His last name references the onomatopoeia for the sound of a clock. He was obsessed with clocks and started committing crimes with the clock and time motif associated with his crimes. One of his biggest weapons is his watch, which can release gas that can knock people out. At the same time, it has control features for his helicopter. While we might be taking a dig at him for sticking to the cliched villain concept of a recurring theme, even the Gotham PD didn't take him much seriously. Of the various crimes he committed to make a steal, he would often be caught by Batman and Robin. This fate provoked him to team up with various other villains on this list, yet he would be caught and put into Arkham again and again. While there are many different villains in this series, Clockmaster stood out because of the voice work of D. Bradley Baker, who tried to reference the character's version from the live-action Adam West Batman series. After all, a character with a head that looks like a clock could go anywhere regarding his actions. Gentleman Ghost. Now, Gentleman Ghost sounds like he might be another villain with a typical name, but this character connects the world's greatest detective to someone who used to be the world's greatest detective. Yes, it seems that to solve the case of the gentleman ghost, our 221B Baker Street resident had to summon Batman. Did you get it? Of course you did. Sherlock Holmes collaborated with Batman, which is somewhat unusual in terms of a plot. James Craddock was a highwayman, notorious for robbing people, and later, one of his biggest obsessions became immortality. To obtain immortality, he would turn to the occult and soon came across Astaroth, who would convince him to work for him and bless him with the power. But when Holmes manages to summon Batman for help, the latter solves the case, and Craddock is hanged to death, only for Craddock to discover that his body cannot leave the mortal plane. So, Craddock waited years to take his vengeance on Batman, and in the process, he returned to his older criminal activity of robbing people. Finally, when he managed to meet the Caped Crusader again, he became one of the regular Batman enemies. Gentleman Ghost managed to have the upper hand when he tried to raise an army of the dead to kill the superheroes, but the army turned on him. With his gentlemanly look from the Victorian times, Gentleman Ghost was an exciting addition and quite literally a ghost. Greg Ellis voiced this character in the animated series. Crazy Quilt. Now, Crazy Quilt sticks to the typical aspects of the Batman villains, such as what we have discussed and seen for ourselves in various other characters. He is a brilliant painter with aesthetics and a criminal who tends to leave clues regarding his plans to paint for his henchmen. Yes, he is the much more artistic rendition of Riddler or other criminals. However, during one of the encounters between him and Robin, the Boy Wonder accidentally hits him with a stimulated emission light amplifier device, which blinds him. Later, when he was caught and taken to Arkham, he volunteered for a procedure that was supposed to restore his vision, and instead, it set him up with a complete helmet and somewhat restored his vision. But the fact that he had to wear an apparatus to get rid of his blindness hurt him, and he would plan his revenge on the Boy Wonder over the years. He planned on using the same weapon that messed up his vision as the prime weapon to fight the Batman and Robin duo. But these plans would be spoiled, and he would be caught and sent back to Arkham. He sported a beret in the earlier episodes and a thin French mustache, and he was voiced by the actor Jeffrey Tambor. Catman. Catman doesn't stand amongst the best of the Batman villains, but is known for stealing the title of one of our favorite characters. Thomas Blake was known for his work on Wildcats, but he soon gave up on that and became a famous thief named Catman. Now, Gotham already had a cat-themed villain, and Catwoman was displeased that someone stole her theme and owned it as a man. As silly as the character sounded, his work was also quite foolish, but he managed to cause some trouble for the Caped Crusader occasionally. However, nothing would bring him to the leagues of the other cat-themed criminal. Sporting a colorful rendition of Black Panther's costume, Catman was a rather silly entry and hardly had any value. Once, he controlled a giant robot cat in the city until Batman comes, throws him off, and leaves, leaving Catman confused about how to react. Thomas F. Wilson did the voice work for this third-rate villain from Batman's Rogue Gallery. Riddler. Now, we have to come back to the popular villains who have appeared in the DC films. The Riddler would leave clues around the town regarding his next crime and use his riddles. He was caught multiple times because the fact that he was convinced that this was a brilliant scheme and was his biggest weakness. Also, much like most of the villains we have seen in those famous Bond films and other such films, Riddler didn't kill his enemies, but put them through elaborate traps that would test their wits. However, when he managed to endanger them, Riddler proved to be a significant enemy of Batman and his League of Friends. Once, he unmasked Batwoman and revealed her secret identity as the heiress Katrina Moldoff to the public. Not only that, he also put Batman in a severe trap when the Caped Crusader was suspended right above an acid death trap until his friends came to his rescue. His brilliance is the one thing that puts Riddler above some of the most notorious villains, but at the same time, the fact that he cannot prevent himself from making a riddle a part of the situation puts him in a fragile spot. John Michael Higgins voiced this beloved Batman villain. Penguin. While the latest Batman live-action franchise from Matt Reeves might have a completely original take on Penguin, there are fans of the Caped Crusader who much prefer the animated Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot and Danny DeVito's take on the character from the 1992 Batman Returns. Penguin is a master of organized crime and the most gangster villain in the universe, as he fits in with every aspect of that persona. He trains his flock of birds like an army, as they know how to use various weapons and some of Penguin's gadgets. Cobblepot also owned the famous Iceberg Lounge, where the Gotham villains gathered for various nefarious purposes. But this was just a cover-up for all his criminal activities, which included robbery, information brokering, and even arms sales. Actor Stephen Root gave the character a voice, and it is a brilliant choice because the actor plays a fair share of villains and heroes and fits right into the character's shoes. While Penguin does have some very well-known arcs, in this series, we get to explore a parallel universe arc from him where he teams up with the Joker. The duo would be the primary villains in the crossover animated feature between Batman, the Brave and the Bold, and Scooby-Doo. But if you're talking about Penguin, you can't miss the various gadgets in his everyday attire, like his hat and the umbrella.
Ah, nuts.
Bane, the one villain who managed to break Batman, quite literally, ends up making an appearance in this series, and if we are being honest, is quite a small appearance. Now, Bane makes his first appearance without consuming the venom that fills his muscles and gives him hulking features. Instead, he appears as an individual that Batman chases along with Wildcat. Wildcat makes fun of them because Bane looks like an easy villain to him, but finally, Bane takes the venom and things turn for the worse. Bane managed to throw away Wildcat and went for Batman's back again until Wildcat used one of Batman's batarangs to hit him on the pipes that fed him with the venom. That's how Wildcat prevented Bane from doing something for Batman, known as his most significant achievement, breaking the Dark Knight's spine. Star Trek actor Michael Dorn lends his voice to the character, and it fits the tone of the animated series well. Even though the character doesn't become a big deal in the series, he collaborates with other teams of villains to continue his criminal activities.
I need the money, Batman. You know the cost of chemicals these days, and it will take much more.
Scarecrow. Remember that one villain who managed to give the heebie-jeebies to the best detective in the world with his fear toxin? Scarecrow appears as a regular antagonist for Batman and Robin in 10 animated series and often makes quite ruthless attempts to fulfill his evil plans. These plans included the fact that he would go on a killing spree at Gotham State University until the Caped Crusader came in and stopped him. Another time, he took the perfect time of Halloween to infect Pumpkin so that they could release the fear gas when heated. But luckily, Flash and Batman managed to stop him yet again. The character doesn't get to fulfill his plans, but does have an impact in the short time he appears in this animated series. It was voiced by the same actor who voiced Clock King, D. Bradley Baker. The character makes a small but impactful appearance in the series.
Silence!
Mr. Freeze. Voiced by the veteran voice actor John DiMaggio of Adventure Time and Futurama fame, this take on the character of Mr. Freeze tries to be completely original. There are no references to the tragic wife arc introduced in the Batman Animated Adventures series, and it helps because that show took its take on the character. While he does try to commit a series of crimes, Batman always finds an easy way to defeat him by destroying his beloved helmet. The character doesn't get a chance to make a substantial impact in this rendition of the Caped Crusader's adventures, but he occasionally appears in many supervillain events. He tried to roast Batman at Joker's Superhero Celebrity Roast, where the individuals collectively roasted the Caped Crusader. But just like his past rendition in the Batman Forever film, his puns never really land with the audience. Eventually, he manages to escape the entire scenario, and we see him back in prison.
You are now Calendar King, with the power to bring any holiday.
Calendar Man. We know that Calendar Man sounds like the simplest villain to be made when creating villains for superheroes with unique motifs, but Calendar Man does get to have some action. The last time fans of DC might have seen him was in prison, and that's exactly where he ends up after his ordeals with the Caped Crusader. At some point, Batmite turns him into the Calendar King by giving him powers that allow him to bring holiday creatures to life, and he ends up using these powers. But then Batman manages to put him and his minions out, and finally, Batmite turns him back to the everyday villain with the motif. Actor Jim Pittock gave the voice of this character. Deadshot. By now, we are very well aware of Deadshot and his real name's mysterious similarity with another popular comic book character. Slade and Wade rhyme well. Wilson has always been next to them, but that's a debate for another time as we discuss this master assassin's presence in the Brave and the Bold animated series. Voiced by Tom Kenny, Deadshot was supposed to be a replacement for Batman until the Caped Crusader revealed that he was a villain and Deadshot turned into a killer for hire. And this isn't any ordinary killer because Deadshot is literally a dead shot in the sense that he never misses. While he has a fantastic stack of guns, fans cannot deny that those wrist guns are the most remarkable thing about him. Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul isn't an ordinary villain, as Batman describes this person as one of the most dangerous foes he has ever faced. This judgment makes sense, considering he is trained in almost every aspect to face all sorts of problems, and even though he has had the help of the Lazarus Pit that extends his life package, Batman had to learn to become the best detective in the world, but Ra's al Ghul had more time than Batman would manage to do so successfully. However, the two respected each other quite a lot, and that becomes clear when you find out that Ra offered Batman the same chance to become heir to his empire. Batman denied this offer, which led to lifelong hostility between the two personas. Voiced by the brilliant actor Peter Woodward, Ra's character was done quite the justice, considering he holds a high position amongst most of the other villains of Batman. But over time, he was concerned about the effects of the Lazarus Pit and decided to look for an ideal heir for his empire, as we had just discussed. While his daughter would have been a perfect choice, her tendency to go against his will stopped him from making that move. Talia's behavior affected him a lot, and he would react ruthlessly. For example, he tied Batman and Talia to a missile headed towards the sun. The Justice League rescued and saved the two, but Batman got into a one-on-one fight with him, and Ra fell into some glaciers. Babyface. It's not a noir reference if there are no references to real-life gangsters, and Babyface's name is derived from Babyface Nelson, one of the most notorious bank robbers in American history. But Babyface is a babyface because of his head, which appears to be that of a newborn child on an adult's body. The first time he would come across Batman was when the Caped Crusader had teamed up with Plastic Man to stop a bank robbery. Similarly, Batman would prevent many of his future attempts, and one of the best among them would be when he managed to acquire an exosuit to become the most prominent mobster in Gotham. Again, he would be stopped by Batman, who wielded his Batmobile, which had been converted into an exosuit for him. Tom Kenny also voiced this character, and he was also given an exciting development for his arc. Babyface would end up marrying Miss Man-Face, and unlike most of the other toxic and weird romantic developments in this animated series, the two would have the nicest one. Whenever anyone spoke up against Miss Man-Face, Babyface would go absolutely bonkers, but at the same time, Miss Man-Face was the only person who could calm him down. Marvelous verdict. Throughout this list, we reviewed some of the most colorful characters that could be depicted in the animated format. While the follow-up series, Beware the Batman, did bring a lot more seriousness to the character, certain aspects of the original series can always be remembered. It is wild to imagine that some of these characters might never make it into a live-action film because they're just silly. Yet, they did add some value to this series with their interpretation. However, we never know what James Gunn might have in store after he proved that he would bring some lesser-known characters into the DC universe to life with the new DCU plans. Let's hope we finally see some live-action interpretations of these villains make it into that world and give us the absolute fun this animated series managed to provide. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and stay safe out there. Thanks, everyone.